Good evening, good evening, good evening. Who offers to shovel the snow from your driveway but then steals your Blu-ray when you turn your back? It's us, the American Scouts for TV Thursday Night Podcast, or ASTV if you're one of the cool kids, joined by Brian as always, and special guest star Sir Z, super sub. Brian, how are we? It was a nervy day yesterday, and up here in the northeast, it was a snowy day. So temper's afraid, but how are you today?
Nervy still right there. Kind of annoyed, but better than you without having 4 inches of snow.
That's true. And not even plowed when I was leaving for work this morning. Suzie, how are you out over there in the netherworld with no snow ever?
A lot better than you. Apparently, it's 70 degrees and sunny out here.
It's supposed to get to 60 degrees apparently at some point next week up here in Connecticut, which is bizarre for like 2 weeks before Christmas, etc. So I'm not going to complain about that. Hopefully the snow will be melted. But nevertheless, it was a dismal beginning to a day after what at the time appeared to be a dismal result for Liverpool. But in the value of hindsight and the benefit of looking back on it, a one-pointer at Newcastle, probably not the worst result, and we're not going to win every single game. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Here's what we are up against tonight. The big questions that everybody's asking. Is it much too late for goodbyes? We'll talk about the mistakes made and our reactions to them. It was not a very good game for the team overall, I think. So plenty of mistakes to point out. Managers, are they getting sacked in the morning? Basically, do managers get too much credit and very often too much blame? As Big Ange Postecoglou is already at odds with the Spurs fans, but they're always at odds with anybody, so it makes no odds. Pun intended there. And then we'll look ahead to the Blues game, the derby to be all derbies, or as we like to call it, bloody hell, these boys are kicking us off the park again match this weekend. But let us start with the game yesterday. 3-3 draw. Started off badly for us, but we pulled it back. It looked like another Arnie Slot second half rescue job, Brian. An uncharacteristic mistake from Kelleher, which got blasted from all quarters. Not just on our Discord, because there was a big hullabaloo on that one, but all over Twitter and Facebook, etc. But at the same time, at the other end, our favourite son, Darwin Núñez, displaying why we have so much criticism of him every Thursday. A game lad, but not particularly a good soccer player by the looks of things. And maybe for the first time since the Forest game, a misstep from the manager in terms of the lineup, etc. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on the game? And was it just one of those where if in other games everything goes right for you, this is the one where everything went wrong?
I mean, I'll start off with just the little pieces right there. One, I didn't like Kwanzaa at right back. I kind of felt like that we could put the kid hung him out to dry a little bit right there. I mean, to me, it'd be more natural to have Gomez come there and play that, since Gomez's ability to go across the entire line of defense, where Kwanzaa just tried and did like one little stint right there against City when we toward the end of the match. But so that was my big thing. I thought that Macka kind of looked a little leggy in parts of that match. You know, he's been worn down. And this is something that we've all talked about, the amount of matches that Macka's played, and it kind of showed right there, because I think that the first goal really technically was really on him. I mean, in a way, right there, because that missed tackle that came through with the pass that basically set Isaac up through there. I mean, so there's that right there. But overall, I can't come here and complain about the point right there, because I thought Newcastle deserved a point by the way they played. I think they gave it to us, and we kind of got what we deserved. I mean, I thought we were a luck out of there with that last goal. But in all, I think it was a deserved share of the spoils.
Suzie, looking at some of the comments post-match, let's say the BBC, which is where I go to get all the information from like the analysis, not the analysis so much, but the comments, etc., because they tend to be fairly balanced, not just from fans that are involved in the two clubs that are playing, but also neutrals, etc. And one of the things I found telling was neutral fans thought it was just an amazing game. It was a very good Premier League game if you weren't a Newcastle or Liverpool fan. Now, Eddie Howe has he has his supporters and he has his detractors. He's a good coach, if not necessarily a great coach, maybe in the same kind of vein as Graham Potter was heralded as, the great hope for English football and turned out not to be. But he is a good coach, and Newcastle are capable of playing very good games, and they are capable, at home at least, of hurting teams. Where do you think Slot was maybe not prepared for Newcastle, or was he maybe not prepared for how good background is at creating an atmosphere to rival Anfield on its best nights in Europe, etc.? Or is it a case that these players are not in the Klopp sense running their legs off, but they are effectively working 110% every week, trying to make this season not be a failure after the loss of a legendary manager?
I think the only thing I would put on Slot is why I really don't understand why he played Kwanzaa as right back. He either Slot was secretly Matip's agent, and he's taking Kwanzaa to task for what he said last season, and he's just gonna annoy the shit out of him, or it was just a really, really amateur mistake from Slot. It didn't make sense to me. I don't understand why you wouldn't play Gomez, who especially last season played both right back and left back and still put in a class performance throughout the whole season. And to put a kid on the fullback, knowing how we play, and then not having Szoboszlai there to protect him, it was really questionable. And I think that's probably one of the most questionable decisions he's made this season. In regards to everything else, I think everything that could go wrong went wrong for us. I think the point was more important. I think the result probably pleased Newcastle fans more than obviously us, given the fact that we're top of the league, top of the Champions League. We just beat Man City 2-0. And so I think it was a bigger game for Newcastle in that sense to get a result than for us, with everything being said and done. It was just like no one turned up. No, everyone that we paid superlatives to, like Gravenberch, Macka, Van Dijk, and all of them. It was just no one turned up. Well, definitely not in the first half. They were still on the bus. And then Isaac, just reminiscent to Tony Yeboah, that goal just came out of nowhere. And what a great goal! And it's just, you can't blame Kelleher for that. But he shouldn't have been given the opportunity to get that shot in. But sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say that it was a great goal, and we just have to accept it. But the game as it went on, we came back into it, and I don't understand the disrespect that Kelleher's getting, considering what he's done for us this season. It's just really, really poor. The disrespect that he's getting, but it is what it is. We did lose the game. We came back from losing twice, and we've got a point out of it. If you're going to lose, drop any points, given the run that we had, I'd rather have been to Newcastle than say like Man United or Everton or any of the others that are kind of chasing us.
So Zay, do you think that maybe the disrespect for Kelleher is because he's a ginger and he has no soul?
I think it's probably because of his eyeliner, but I just don't. I really can't fathom the disrespect he's getting. I think it's because everyone keeps putting the word backup in front of him, and he's a good backup. But if we'd have sold Alisson in the summer and Kelleher was our number one choice, we'll be having a different conversation, and everyone will be saying he's one of the world's best. Look, he's just how Slot has transitioned from taking over Klopp and a smooth transition, and is making it look easy. That's exactly what Kelleher has done with Alisson, and I just don't, he's made one mistake, one error of judgment, and I really don't care what anyone says. No one can prove to me that he doesn't get into any of the other top teams in the Premier League. I think it's better than Raya. It's better than, you can say Martinez has won a World Cup, but so is Hugo Lloris, and Hugo Lloris is pathetic. So they don't hold comparison to what Kevin's done this season.
Brian, is it possible just to go back to the Kwanzaa thing, because it was a strange decision, but do you think Slot was thinking more that Gomez and Van Dijk had formed a little bit of a nice productive partnership at the heart of the defense, and he was reluctant to break that up, and that maybe that was the only solution he could come up with, because Kwanzaa was he wasn't playing badly at all, but maybe he should have looked beyond the first, like the senior players maybe, and did something different. Maybe one of those things that we've seen before that have worked out with Klopp and even Brendan Rodgers, where he's put like an academy midfielder or a winger or something like that in the fullback position, and then for one game only, they look like the best fullback that's ever played the game. And then, of course, we remember the week after that they're actually a central midfielder from the academy, so you can't expect that too much. But do you think that maybe that was the thing? Because it is a strange decision on paper, but Gomez and Van Dijk have been playing well since Konate's injury. Like they've looked like they have an understanding, but maybe it was better to just throw Kwanzaa in that spot and then put the more experienced fullback player into where Kwanzaa was.
I mean, in my opinion, if Trent was on the bench, why didn't Trent come there and play? I mean, I would have played Trent for at least a half or maybe like 50 minutes, and then brought Kwanzaa on toward that point right there, because you saw the impact that Trent had as soon as he got in there. I mean, he had assists right almost pretty much throughout on the get-go of coming onto the pitch. So I mean, that's a strange thing. I don't know whether Slot thought that Trent wasn't ready to go in there to pull out a 60-minute match. I'm not really sure right there, but to me, I mean, it's almost like if you're fit to come there and go on the bench, you should be fit to get on the pitch for at least a duration of time. As far as like pulling an academy player, I don't really know of an academy player right there that could probably push in the right back right now in that type of match. Because I mean, they knew that they were going to have to go against Gordon in that match, and they're going to run a kid, and they obviously did run a kid down to ground because Kwanzaa got ran. I mean, so I mean, in my opinion, right there, I still would have played Trent, and and then we could have came there and had Trent come, sit back and maybe come on as a sub in this next match, or do another 45, and then have Gomez come on Kwanzaa in the middle for the derby. But I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like Kazi Kanter was talking about. He was just being a little too tweaky with the lineup right there, with how he was doing. But yeah, I wouldn't have played Kwanzaa there, and I wouldn't have played a kid. I would have put Trent right on the get go, just to keep this momentum going and for what the impact that he can do.
Is it possible, Brian? Managers as good as they are, even Klopp, even Pep, have a habit of occasionally thinking they're cleverer than the rest of us. Because I'm thinking back on it now that maybe Szoboszlai in midfield and Jones as a temporary fullback would have worked better than Kwanzaa, because Jones is a more attacking player. Or maybe even Gravenberch. You don't want to take Gravenberch out of that sixth spot. But to be fair, that's a disaster waiting to happen. But sometimes managers just think they're a bit smarter than the situation, and he got caught out with this one. But do you think we've seen? I think so far this season, Slot's a very adaptive manager. If he sees something, he changes it, and if he sees a mistake, he tries not to make that mistake again. Do you think that yesterday's experience will make him look at it and go, that's not an experiment I want to try again?
But he did the same thing. You can go right there, and I think this is another point that Kazi brought up even on the post match right there. Why would if we knew that we did not have a healthy right back, why didn't we come there and go into and load the midfield up and go into a 4-4-2? I mean, that way at least come there and be able to cover those positions up. I mean, we have the capability. You could have put Naoni on right there. You had Harvey. You had other midfielders that you could have came there and moved into that mix, and had Macka go there and sit back, or Gravenberch sit back, as a holder. I mean, as a holding midfielder, and then you could have still been able to support that defense a little bit better. I mean, it's, to me right there, just having Kwanzaa out there was just, it was just odd. It was an odd selection. I mean, I think we've all pretty much come to that conclusion. And maybe this is something right there that Slot learned. I just hope that it doesn't mess with the kid's confidence right there, because if you're a fullback and a right back are two entirely different thought processes on the pitch. I mean, it's a totally different area, totally different scope, and there's things right there you can't accomplish in the same mindset. So, I mean, again, Gomez could have gone there, Kwanzaa could have gone in the middle, or Trent could have been in there and left Gomez go there and partner with Van Dijk. It just shows right there that in the long run that we are pretty light back in the back right there of like senior fullbacks and senior central defenders right there that we need. That's something that we talked about in the summertime, that it could be a possibility, and then Konate get injured is kind of reared this light and back in the light with us. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see. I just think that Trent should have started this match.
So Z, we're not going to talk about this speculation because I think that's probably going to be more for the Friday morning coffee show, lads. But facsimile Steve Claridge, not the real Steve Claridge. I hope if he's the real Steve Claridge, I'll love him even more. But he's one of my favorite commenters on Thursday Night Podcast. He's feeling confident of all three signs. But he's mentioning Salah. Salah was very important to us last night, which is why this re-signing of the contract is important. I don't want to get into another Thursday night. Let's pin Darwin Núñez to the wall and isolate every single fault he has. But the difference was very, very stark. I mean, just let me go back to that picture there. I mean, you can't have two more different talents standing beside each other, wearing the same colored jersey and playing on the same team and playing in the same area of the field. Núñez had one glorious attempt at a shot that was closer to the corner flag by the time the ball stopped than it was to the goal. And it's not the first time that's happened, whereas Salah was fashioning chances almost out of nothing. He was doing what a proper goal scorer is supposed to do. We're all desperate for Salah to sign, but was yesterday's game an example of why the man should be paid his money? Because talent like that is not easy to find, and it's not easy to find for cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if Salah signs, I think he will probably go down as probably our greatest player that we've had. And given the fact it's probably Dalglish and Stevie G.
Greater than Torben Peak, Nick, Suzy. Greater than Torben Peak, Nick.
Oh, that's a flip of a coin. Or it's Van Cosma. But he's just relentless. He's literally a machine. And comparing him to Núñez is like comparing Van Dijk to Kwanzaa. It's
it's Van Cosma and Torben Peak.
Or Clever. It's you got to pay the guy what he's worth. I mean, I don't even think he knows he can go to Manchester City or anyone else and get probably like 500,000-600,000 a week easy, and he's not even asking for that. I think just out of respect for us, who knows? I mean, I don't know how much he's asking for. I think it's more the length of the contract that he wants, and just give it to him. I mean, we're talking about a 32-year-old who, he doesn't succumb to lifestyle of your typical footballer. He doesn't go out partying. He doesn't drink. He looks after himself. He's probably got like 2-3% body fat. All he wants is just to get records, and he wants that with us. So it's just simple math. I just don't understand the games unless it's all a showmanship from the club and the three. And come Christmas time, all three were just like, oh yeah, we join in, and that's it, and that will cover up, and then that will kind of like distract us from not buying any new players in January. But if that's the case, I'd rather take these three and get a new player in January. But Salah's importance is just it's so important to this team, and it's just the flip of a coin of who's more important, him or Van Dijk, to this team. They both are just so integral to our success, and even just going forward. And that's another reason going back to Kwanzaa why he should have played Kwanzaa as centre back, because Van Dijk is a force multiplier. Anyone who plays with him, they look like a top 3 player, and you know you just it's a shame with Nunes, and you know I'm still on the Nunes train. I still want him to do well, and I just don't understand. Like, he's got all the talent and the potential to be world class, and he just something just doesn't click. But then he has a good game, like he did against Man City, came along, defended, and you know we were waxing lyrical about him, and then he just has a performance like yesterday where, I mean, it's inexcusable that goal, that shot near the post. All you have to do is just run in. I don't care, you know, if your nuts hit the freaking post, who cares? That ball would have gone in. You put yourself on the line for that, and I don't know. He just chickened out of it, which is that's inexcusable.
Brian, if we look at the stats for the game, it's relatively balanced. They did have more shots on target. They were worth the 3 goals. We probably were worth the 3, but I think we needed something special for at least one of them. But in terms of possession, we obviously dominated that. In terms of corner kicks, we just shaded that. But this is the point we keep having to make every Thursday. In a game that is so finely balanced, and in a game where if you accept that one wonder goal and one possible goalkeeping mistake, I don't know whether it was the second one, it was a goalkeeping mistake. The last one definitely was. But in a game so finely balanced, when you've clawed it back to 2-2 and then taken the lead, you need somebody who you can count on in the box when a random bouncing ball comes in, or a random deflection, or a goalkeeper that can't hold on to the ball, lets it out of his hands. You need somebody that's going to put that into the net at least 33% of the time, which I think is the standard stat, and not 1% of the time. It really is going to hurt us to have to rely on Nunes as the number 9, isn't it, until Jota comes back fully fit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was talking today with one of my coworkers on there. I mean, if we had to go forward right there, why don't we just have Diaz come there and stay up front, and then if we want Nunez on there, rotate between Nunez and Gakpo on the left. I mean, have Diaz run the middle until we can come here until we get Jota straight. But it goes to show also on there right there that, you know, that in the long run we're 9 short. I mean, and I said that probably back in the summertime, that we needed to have another number 9, because I can't come there and depend on Jota to stay healthy for an entire season, and I can't depend on Nunez to go in there to have any kind of run of form. And so, I mean, that's problematic right there. I mean, right now we're basically relying on Mo to go in there and put every goal in at the moment. And so it seems that we're going at. But I mean, kind of back just a little backtrack right there when you were talking about with Kelleher and stuff like that. You know, I really think that one thing I would have done different right there, and I could have also avoided Macka coming there and getting that second yellow right there. Once we got that goal on there and we were up 3-2, I would have put Endo in right there and broke up play. I mean, and I think that would have changed the whole dynamics of the game of the match. But I mean, it's in the past now. But I do think that looking forward right there, I mean, I don't see any forwards that we have right now. I mean, I think Dan's is getting healthier, but Dan's right now isn't at the same level that we expect a top Premier League striker to be at the moment. So I mean, we need to go out there and look at there's gaps in the squad right now to be looked at. I mean, well, I said about the defensive backs back in the defense, and also say right there up front that we need to have another option up on the front.
So what you're saying is a loan move for Olivier Giroud in January is what we're looking at, right? Or just do what I've been suggesting, just buy Evan Ferguson for cheap. He'd be much better than Nunes.
Hey, let's go through and see if Suarez wants to come back for a short stint right there until the MLS season comes out.
No harm in that at all. Before we move on there, Mr. Z, I think the one thing we can say for weeks and weeks and weeks was that our midfield was dominating the games, and that allowed the team to dominate the games. But we've also said that the running of Szoboszlai is crucial, and a fresh McAllister is also vital. Do you think that was made more apparent yesterday?
Oh yeah,
These boys
100%.
need to be rested.
And I was Szoboszlai's biggest critic at the beginning of the season, and I put my hands up. You notice how well or how much we need him in games that when he's not playing, and it was similar to like Ronaldo. Um, I don't remember a game where we thought, oh, if only Ronaldo was playing, like we need. But you don't realize how good he is when we do miss him. And that's the same with Szoboszlai. And we're lucky that we have Szoboszlai and Jones. Two very different players, but they can offer different things. And obviously on Saturday we'll find out how we can play all three of them with Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, and Jones, and McAllister being injured. It's kind of maybe a blessing in disguise, and we can see how we can play without having to rely on McAllister or an informed McAllister, and see how these three perform. I mean, they're definitely they're not being run to the ground like how Klopp ran, Henderson, Fabinho, and Milner into the ground. They're still, but no more international games until next year. That's definitely going to help with McAllister, absolutely. And as far as that front, for all of Nunes' critics, Jota and Chiesa, they're not available, and that's on them. Like Jota, yeah, again another unfortunate injury, but it's just a bruised rib. It's been out it's going to be out like 2-3 months because of that. You have to be available, and so Nunes is, as much as Nunes has got his critics, I blame Jota as well. He's got to make himself available. He has to be available. It's we need him in games like this, and Chiesa, all right, give him the benefit of the doubt, but Jota has seen this too much, too many times, and he's such a elite striker, but it counts for nothing if you don't make yourself available.
I think what we might see is that when Jota does come back, maybe he's a little bit hairier on the top of the head than he was before he was injured. So we'll have to keep an eye out on his bonds and see if he's had any sort of plugs inserted when he comes back. But the question I posed at the start, Brian and Suzy, was not at the start, in the middle rather, was that maybe Slot misjudged the atmosphere at Newcastle, misjudged Newcastle, and maybe tried to be a little bit clever, too clever, perhaps. But that's a criticism that many managers get up and down England and all across the world every week from their fans. So my question, and we'll start with Brian, is, as we see here with a steward diffusing the situation between Big Ange and the Spurs fans today in their loss to Bournemouth, but do we get too harsh on managers when things go wrong? And at the same time, do we give managers too much credit when things go right and forget that there's players on the field that have to have talent and work rate, etc., in order for things to succeed? And is this something, do you think, that we have to bear in mind? Because quite often managers whose teams just having a bad run of form get sacked by the board, or they get chanted against by the fans. When all that needs to happen is that you just wait a little bit and then the fortune's torn. So in other words, do we put too much stock on whether the manager is the defining factor between winning and losing?
I mean, in my opinion, right there, you're the captain of your ship. So you're always responsible for everything, for the entire upkeep of your squad and tactics and everything that goes involved with the entire atmosphere, the entire everything with the entire aura of your squad. And so ultimately, right there, yes, you as a manager are responsible for your players. And if you have a player you could come across situations where you have players that don't go in there and adhere to what your directions are, and they can sink you. I mean, Ten Hag is a prime example right there of a player power, because I really think that those players right there had enough of Ten Hag and they stopped playing. I mean, and that's basically what got him the sack. Well, I mean, it was coming anyway, but I mean, it pushed the issue along right there. As far as Spurs go right there with that, it's amazing that this isn't Levy that's forcing this issue, because he's usually the guy that forces managers out for the long run. But I think that with him, I think with Ange right there, he had that first season where he was, that everybody's like, oh my gosh, this guy has such potential and brilliant. He's playing really solid football. Somebody who's coming from the SPLs coming there, bringing up all these things right here, and this type of fast paced play and stuff like that. You lose Kane. You have an aging son. I mean, you're kind of like a victim of your own squad in some aspects right there. But it goes. I guess in a rough way to say, yes, the manager is responsible. Is the burden sometimes on a manager too? Is it not right for them to have all this burden? No, but ultimately, right there, you're in that job and you're making that kind of money. You're responsible. So, yeah. If he gets a sack, if they sack somebody, a manager, Steve Cooper's a prime example. Perfect manager. He's been bounced around the league already, right there. I mean, in there. I mean, a good Potter, another example right there of a good manager, good tactics. But ultimately, right there, your job is to go in there to get results. And if you don't get results, you gotta go.
I think Brian makes some very good points there. But what I would like to ask though is do we as supporters put too much pressure on the managers, too much burden of responsibility? I mean, they are the captains of the ship. I think Brian is perfectly correct in that. And the closest thing I ever got to the military was the GI Joe I got for Christmas one year that I broke within 10 seconds. But in the military, you have to look to the leaders, and even if their underlings do the wrong thing, you have to question why they allowed that to happen in the first place. But as fans, do we like? I remember there was no defending the 6-1 loss to Stoke for Brendan Rodgers. It was just a very poor performance, and it was clearly players, as Brian mentioned about Ten Hag, that had just said, right, this is not the man. So we can't do anything more for that. But did he cause Liverpool to lose 6-1, or did we just decide that he was the one we were going to take all of our frustrations out for that game? That was Gerrard's last game, wasn't it?
Gerrard's last game, yeah.
And because of the emotion of that, because you would think that the players would get up for a game against Stoke. Mark Hughes managed Stoke at that for one of Liverpool's most legendary players, probably in the top 3 of legendary players of all time. But they didn't, and they capitulated dreadfully. So my question is, do we use managers almost as an effigy to put all of our frustrations on, maybe because we don't actually have all the answers as to why certain things happen?
I think obviously being a Liverpool fan, we're exception to the rule. We've only had 23 managers in our history compared to like Chelsea, who've had 23 managers in like 6 months. So
that's 24.
24.
Like, since that sentence started and finished,
27 now. I think what we've shown, like with managers like Rodgers and Hodgson, is if we give a manager too much control and if we allow them to make decisions in terms of buying players and renewing contracts, it goes against them. And that's why I love Slot. He is the head coach, and that's what he's doing, is coaching and letting someone else manage above him. And you saw Rodgers, he wanted to put his foot down with Gerrard. He wanted to show that he's bigger than Gerrard, and he went against him. And effectively, that's why he lost his job. He didn't want to play. Bobby Firmino wasn't his buy. He didn't want to play Firmino, and eventually, it cost him his job. And Firmino went on to show, he's an elite player. Hodgson, buying players like Konchesky and Post, like, what the hell is that? It's again that's cost him. So I like the way that we as a club do things. And again, even like towards end of Klopp's tenure, we gave him some power, and with that power, he didn't renew Virgil van Dijk, he didn't renew Salah, he didn't renew Trent, and now we're in this position that we're in. And you see how Man United, with Ten Hag, how much money he spent on players like Anthony and everything else, and it's cost him his job. So if you're going to have a manager, I think that we've gone away from where the managers should be allowed to dictate contracts and who they buy, and they should just take that role as a head coach, like we've done with Slot. Let powers that be do their job. These are the players we're getting. Yeah, have some input, but if you let a manager completely control what players that you buy and then you fire them, now you've got a bunch of expensive deadwood that the next manager is not going to want, and you're just going to keep going around in circles like Everton did with their managers. Keep giving money, and next manager doesn't want them. The other manager doesn't want them. And you get to a situation with Benitez, who is having to buy Solomon Rodden because he's got no more money left. But fans in general, yeah, I mean, we're in a world of instant gratification now, and if you're not winning, and obviously Spurs, we're probably like 4 generations in since any Spurs fans have seen any kind of silverware. Obviously, they're frustrated. They're seeing Arsenal, and they haven't won anything either, but seeing like Chelsea, Arsenal, like kind of like doing better than them, and it's just fans' mentality. But then I think that's a London thing too. London fans are really impatient, and they just all jump on the bandwagon. I don't think they have the same mentality that Liverpool fans like. As the support that we give managers is probably second to none, and Klopp earned his. Klopp had a couple of bad seasons, but he earned them. He had enough credit in the bank to earn them, just like Guardiola has now. I think if that was a different manager, who's maybe 2 seasons in and lost 7 games in a row, they probably would have been fired. But obviously, Guardiola's got enough credit in the bank to maybe go like 10 games, in a row without winning, and still keep his job. So it's a fine line. But yeah, supporters getting on the manager's back when the players out there aren't performing. It's players have to take a lot of responsibility as well. And unfortunately, it's a manager that's a poster boy, and it's easier to fire a manager than place 11 players. It's a lot cheaper that way.
I mean, that is very true. But Brian, Cersei makes a point, probably unintentionally, but that I'm trying to bring up is that, for Brendan Rodgers, in terms of wanting to put his foot down and get more say in player in transfers, he spent the summer saying he had no desire to have anything to do with Mario Balotelli, and then lo and behold, on the last day of the transfer season, or not too far before it, he got Mario Balotelli as his only striker after losing Suarez, and Sturridge got injured pretty much, not like I think it was that summer even, wasn't it, for England?
Yeah.
So Brendan Rodgers had to go into that season without a striker. On the flip side, Gerard Houllier, when he got fired, was getting criticised for the players he was bringing in, but that same team went and won the Champions League a year later. The team that we thought, that we said Brendan Rodgers was destroying and had bad choices, got to the Europa League final against Sevilla that year. So there was definitely quality there. So my question, Brian, is that where the imbalance starts coming? We look for the obvious answer. For example, because this is the point I wanted to make. I read something today, and I can't remember where I read it, but it was Klopp once saying he doesn't always have a say in who gets picked on a Saturday. The fitness guys will come in and say that player can't play. Their energy levels are too low, or they're approaching. I mean, there's metrics for when players can become injured. There's very good metrics. I have a friend who runs a data company on that for soccer teams, and for some well-known soccer teams, they can actually measure the rate of the fatigue that a player has and their likelihood of getting injured. So even then, a manager may not be able to pick the player they want to start a game, and we don't know that as fans. So we just say that was a crap move. Maybe Slot was told by the fitness people, don't start Trent, see how the game is going, and then put him in. But we don't see that part. We don't hear that conversation. So as fans, do we just go for the quick and easy answer as to why things are succeeding and failing?
I mean, I guess you could, by wording it that way. I think in some aspects, yes, we do. I mean, that's what as like Steve King, they're putting in the comments right there. We paid a lot of money to watch these matches. We have the right to be critical, and he's absolutely correct. I mean, we have the right to come there and critique why this didn't happen, even sometimes without even knowing all the answers. We still have that. The right.
We pay a lot of money. Let's have a Fire Stick.
But I think that even the case right there with Klopp, I think that sometimes a manager runs the course of a team too far, and they can't. There's no more answers for them. Brendan Rodgers should have been gone after that Stoke match. I think I was with one of many people right there back in when it was just talking on Facebook about it right there. He should have gone. I mean, you can't go there and go into an off season and off of that, and then feel comfortable going to the season. And how many matches did he last after that? What was it? He was gone in eight games. And I was there also, by the way. I was at the last friendly with AC Milan and Liverpool that watched Balotelli come there and play. And I was like, oh, shit, please don't sign this guy. And then all of a sudden, here we go. Here we go with this nutcase getting signed. So, yeah, I mean, we can be really critical, and we don't know all the metrics of modern football. I mean, with the lactic acid tests and different things that that Klopp had and a lot of physios do. But ultimately, right there, it's about winning. It's about winning matches. And again, if you had enough fitness right there to be on that bench, you probably have enough fitness right there to even go to play 45 minutes of the match. I mean, Trent came on and he was on for 30 minutes, a little bit over 30 minutes. I think it was 35 minutes, something like that. I'm not really sure. But he still came there and went and played, and he still got on the pitch. If you're not fit enough to be on the pitch, you should be on the bench.
I think that's a fair point, which is probably why I spent most of my soccer career on the bench. This svelte body wasn't always there, I was fat once. But from a club and a set of supporters who support their managers since at least 1959 to a club that boos its manager if he loses the coin toss. Playing these boys on the weekend, Everton away at Woodison at the most prefabricated Lego ground on the planet. Strazee, does the Newcastle game give you pause for thought with this one? Or is it a game where we have to continue to remind ourselves that form goes out the window on Derby Day?
I think it's a bit of both. Apprehensive because we've seen this story before where we've been doing so well and then we have this little snag or a little hiccup and then kind of ends up derailing our season for a bit, like it was with Man United last year when we lost 4-3. I think if Klopp was in charge, I'd be more nervous because I've seen it under him before. I think if Slot, he's shown, like you alluded to earlier on, he'll make changes, and he's very unemotional with the players that he has, which, as much as I love that about Klopp, I think it was to his detriment sometimes as well. And I think if Klopp was still the manager this season, I think Gally had said it, Salah wouldn't be here. I think a lot of players, they needed a new voice, and Slot is that new voice. And it's just extended the careers of hopefully Salah and Van Dijk in regards to being Liverpool players still. That all being said, I think having a more mechanical and unemotional manager on Saturday is going to be good for us. and we've still got leaders. We keep saying we have leaders in that team. Trent, Van Dijk, Salah, Robertson. Players that they've won the Premier League. They've seen it. They've seen it before. And I know it's Everton's last game at Goodison, but I don't think we'll be. I don't think we'll be unnerved by it, especially after coming from Newcastle. We experienced. Stotts experienced a big, heavy crowd similar to Liverpool's crowd, and so I think Everton won. It's I don't think it will unnerve our players. It's just a matter of coming through unscathed and winning the game without any more injuries.
Brian, Suzy talks about the emotionalism of Klopp, and also that it's the last derby at the old stadium at Goodison. I remember the last day of the Cup against Norwich way back when, and it was, you hoped that Liverpool would win. Roy Evans managing, it was a good team, but a mentally weak team, I think, in comparison to, say, United or Blackburn at the time. And that's what proved to happen. They won 1-0, if I remember correctly, on the last day of the Cup. The emotion got to the players, I think, even in my young days. But Suzy makes a good point. Everton, especially with the win they had just this week, are probably more likely to be the emotional team in this game, aren't they? And it might actually work out really well for us that our manager is a Dutch robot.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that, again, Everton still is has pretty close to that bottom group that they're trying to get separation on, and I think the slot right there is, this is like the most emotionalist manager that we've had in a long time. I think I'd probably maybe say Jed. Was probably more Jed's. Like I think Rafa had his moments of being pretty over emotional, but Jed was just cool, calm, and collected for the most part. With this, and I think, I can't count I think Brendan Rodgers had too much emotion on there, and I think his ego right there definitely showed. Klopp was just all emotion. I think that's going to be an advantage that we have. I think also with it is that whole they're going to want to come out there to win that match. Everton is. They're going to want to come out there and close out that piece of crap stadium of theirs right there. For the last time right there before they go to the new piece of crap stadium right there, as Alan said, that's leaking already and stuff like that. So again, we just have to go there and keep our heads in the match, because so many times I've watched us where they drag us into their mire, into their bad tackles, into their emotions, and we wind up getting players set off. So, it happens all the time. It goes back to even with seeing some of the Gerard sending offs, things like that happen. There's dumb things. We just have to keep our heads.
Yeah. So this game, we're talking about Kelleher earlier on, and right now I'm thinking of, in terms of emotionalism, in terms of not real leadership, but that kind of obvious, shouty kind of leadership that doesn't actually achieve very much other than make you look like the person who's in charge. They have Pickford in goal, who I think is going to be the one who's going to be overly emotional. And I know sports psychologists say there's a fine balance. It's a really fine needle that you can get overstimulated, and that will make your performance suffer just as much as being understimulated. Pickford is, I think, the touchstone for that team. In terms of mentality, if he gets into the emotion of the game, if he starts making those crazy runs out of the box to be a hero, that occasionally gets right, but more often than not, it ends up on the question of sport, what happened next reel. That's one for the oldies there. Do you think that do you think we'd be able to read the mood of that Everton team by looking at what Pickford's doing in the first 15 minutes? And do you think somebody like Slot will be looking at that and going, okay, these boys are going to leave a lot of gaps, so let's change this little thing here and we're going to win this easily? Not that there's any easy Everton games, but
yeah, I think, we've seen Pickford absolutely shithousery against us where, holding onto the ball for so long and then catching the ball and dropping to the ground, just to break up our momentum. And obviously, when they beat us last season, they knew we were going through a down period. I think now, obviously we're up there, and apart from yesterday's game, the momentum is with us, and I think they're going to try and break that momentum like they did when we Klopp at his peak. Just where they're going to slow the ball down, just try and get us frustrated. I think it helps. I was going to say it helps that we don't have that many Scousers on the team that they're going to feel the passion about them. We've got Jones playing and Trent playing, obviously. It's definitely not a game, or not a game for emotional players. So I wouldn't play Nunes at all. I would have him maybe come on maybe in the last 10, 15 minutes. But we need smart, intelligent players. Hopefully, Salah is, he thinks he's on this final world tour. And it'll be a good ground for Salah to nail some coffins on hammer some nails into that coffin for Goodison, and just go off, give Everton a big send off at Goodison by absolutely annihilating them. I wouldn't say I'm confident with the win, but I don't see us losing this. And I think if we could keep our emotions in check and play intelligently and not play Everton's game, it should be a comfortable win.
Brian, how many boos will there be by halftime from the Everton fans, do you think?
Probably within the first 5 minutes. I mean, that stadium, it doesn't take long for the Boo Boys to be back in town. I mean, they got one win this week right there, so it may be reserved for the first 15 minutes, and then as soon as they start losing ground in a match, then the Boo Boys will be back. But to go off of what Sir Z said right there, you definitely need smart mental players in this match. This is not a Darwin Nunez match. I'm actually kind of glad that McAllister's not in this match, because I think McAllister sometimes gets a little too emotional into matches. So I'm almost to a point right there. I would say right there, maybe even tweaking the front and have a Gapco up front and Diaz on the left, and then Mo on the right, because I think that Gapco's still smart. I know he doesn't like to play up front, but I think he has a right mentality and a right little bit of cheekiness right there that he could go there and make something happen out of this match. But yeah, I mean, with having Trent and basically in the most as the emotional person attached to this, besides our other scouts right there, we just basically go there, need to keep our heads straight.
So before we finish up for the night, then, because we're going to have probably a pre-match on the weekend anyway, who'll discuss the lineups and all that beforehand. Let's do this. Brian, a score prediction and impact player, quickly.
3-1. I think that they're going to get some kind of cheeky little crap goal right there, but I think that we're too strong for them. And impact player, I think that Trent's going to be the impact player on this.
Suzy, score prediction and impact player.
I think 3-2. Obviously, to us, Salah being the impact player, the form he's in, you can't go against him. So yeah, Salah. I'm
gonna go for 2-2, just because that's how wary I am about how these things go. Impact player, let me just say Kelleher, just for the week that was. Just for the week that was. So with that said, thank you for joining us. Alan says 2-1 and Virgil. Steve Clark says 4-0 and Salah. Hopefully that's what we have to deal with. It'll be a great weekend if so. If you like what we do, make sure you are following us on YouTube and subscribed and smash that button or tap it gently. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and then Twitter, formerly known as X. And then join the Discord channel and see all of the madness there. But gentlemen, great to talk to you again as always, Suzy and Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Morning coffee tomorrow morning, and then probably a pre and a post match on the weekend. So make sure you are paying attention to that. But just remains to say, enjoy your Thursday, enjoy your weekend. We will see you next time. Peace out and have a good one.
Bye, Jim.